So, good morning to all. We will start the session now. I hand over it to Mr. J. Mawshar Ali to invite the chief guest for the day.
Very good morning to all. A great pleasure for me to introduce Mr. Prithvi Rajan, Senior Research Fellow, CSIR, Department of Manufacturing Engineering, College of Engineering, Guindy, Anna University. He is here to deliver a lecture on the topic of design of additive manufacturing. He is associated with Additive Manufacturing Lab, CEG, Anna University. He has got many awards and recognition. His area of research is additive manufacturing and rapid tooling and design for additive manufacturing. He obtained his master's from CEG, Anna University. His expertise in the design softwares like SolidWorks, CATIA, and Fusion 360, which is the first stage of any rapid prototyping process. He is also expertise in the analysis and rapid prototyping softwares also. He has published papers in many renowned journals in the area of rapid prototyping and additive manufacturing. Sir, we welcome you for our Atal FDP, and I hand over the session to Mr. Prithvi Rajan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the brief introduction about me. So over the past few days, we have been seeing about different additive manufacturing process and different capabilities of additive manufacturing process, what it can do. Today's session we will see about design for additive manufacturing. You might have been introduced about this topic by a few prominent speakers before, but in this session we will go somewhat deep inside the design for additive manufacturing, and based on the previous 4-day session, you have come to a conclusion like I can use this additive manufacturing technique for my project or for some project works or your research work. But I'll put a pause to your all your thinking and pull back you and tell what to do and what not to do. That is basically the design for additive manufacturing does. So with this, I'll start my session. Before going deep into the design for additive manufacturing, there is a concept every mechanical engineer might know: design for manufacturing and assembly, which is nothing but the design for manufacturing is nothing but it is developed for the ease of fabrication of a part. Design for assembly is nothing but these are the guidelines that gives us to make an assembly at an easy and faster pace. Will have a more economic advantage. So both this design for manufacturing and design for assembly at many stages they will be contradictory to each other. It's like when design for manufacturing, if you consider, you will tell like based on the specific set of limitations of the process you choose. Like if you choose an injection molding or if you choose a CNC machining, there will be set of constraints for those machining or molding process. So we'll have to consider those in the design stage itself, so that we will not we will have a economic production at the later stage. Similar way in design for assembly, it will tell us like you should combine more parts and you should spend less time on the during the assembly, so you can increase the productivity. So both these things will contribute to increase in productivity and economy of the manufacturing process itself. So with this note, we'll go for the design for additive manufacturing. Before that, there are some unique capabilities with the additive manufacturing. We know additive manufacturing is capable of creating very complex shapes, and it can mix material in every. You can change material at every layer or within the layer itself. You can program the material to have a specific structure and specific deformation behavior with the hierarchical complexity, and with the functional complexity you can combine 2 or more functions within a single component itself. Sometimes it is also possible to fabricate an entire assembly in a single go itself. But are we taking advantage of all these unique capabilities of additive manufacturing is a big question mark, because most of the time we will be concentrating on fabricating the part which we design for a regular production process. The part which are designed for the regular production process, like on CNC or CNC like that, it will be a bulky part, because in CNC or subtractive manufacturing, we will concentrate on removing less material and getting the product as functional as we want. We mostly we will not consider lightweighting or removing as much as material we want, because removing material is removing material will cost you. The more the material you remove, more cost you have to pay for the more cost you have to pay. But whereas in additive manufacturing, you can deposit material only where it is required, so that you can take advantage of the shape complexity. This is the primary driver for everyone to adapt into additive manufacturing, so that we'll just design a part and comes to additive manufacturing and manufacture it. So, but most of the time we neglect all other advantages with the additive manufacturing. Most of the time it's like, if we get the part, it is okay like that. So design for additive manufacturing address all these constraints and give us a clear pathway how to achieve this. So design for additive manufacturing is a design philosophy where parts and products will be designed for the fulfillment of the function. What function it has to be done, that has to be satisfied with the product, and it has to satisfy the lifetime of the product, what we expected also. How we achieve is like, we achieve this through design concept innovation. Here the design concept innovation is like, it is not the regular design process which we use. The prismatic shapes which we actually use for machining, that will not be help us in this design concept innovations, which we will see later stages of the slides. And the optimization of material distribution and material composition, that the material optimization of material distribution and material composition will be addressed by topology optimization and other such softwares which can predict your stress level and distribute the material properly, so that you have the least amount of material given to the product and you have the best performance out of the product. So then there are a set of limitations with the process by itself. If you can classify the additive manufacturing into 7 categories. If you take each and every process, they have a set of limitations which they can perform well. So if you are restricting your product within these limitations of the manufacturing process, your product can be more economical and more performance and quality of the product can be improved. So if you are designing a component, you should know what to do and what not to do. We'll see in the next coming slides. So as the architecture of the additive manufacturing fused deposition modeling process itself, it requires support structures. So the support structure can be breakaway, or it can be a soluble material. Soluble support structures, you can put it in water or other chemicals to make it dissolve and remove the support structures. You can have the part. And breakaway support structures are nothing but you have to the support structure will be made with the actual part material itself. Need to break away individual support structures after the process is over. So when we are giving a part for FDM, we should consider on support structure removal. You should have a space to remove the support structures. If you have some parts which are unable to access for removal of support structures, the support structure will remain there. You cannot remove it, and most of the time it will leave marks over the on the supported surfaces. Supported surfaces will not be clean, so it needs it will leave marks that it needs to be post processed if you need that part to be more smooth, or should have a good finish. So most of the time what we do is like we'll hide the surfaces. Which surface? The surface that is not visually required, means like there will be some if you are printing an enclosure, there the outside surface only be required to will be visibly seen. The inside surfaces will not be seen. If possible, we'll print it upside down so that the internal surface will have the support structures and outer surface will be smooth as we require. So sometimes it is possible to build an FDM without support structures also. You can see here, this is part made in our lab. You can see here for amount of short distances, you can build the part without support structures. Mostly it will be like if you have a gap between the pillars of 5 mm, you can go for unsupported printing itself. And if you go for 10 mm, the first layer which is printed unsupported will sag and you will lose the structural and dimensional properties. So one thing is like if you are less than 5 mm, you can go for a bridge type, and you need not to give supports in this region. And the other thing is like the orientation angle plays an important role in FDM. There is an 45-degree rule where you can print a part with a 45-degree inclination without any support structure. There is no need to print support structure for a 45-degree. Again, this 45-degree rule and this bridging rule is specific to our machine. We have calibrated our machine so that we can achieve this. Sometimes it is not achievable. Maybe around 50-degree or 55-degree support structure is not required. It depends on the machine itself. So what is the advantage of making this unsupported thing is like we need not to spend time on post processing. We need not to waste the material on the support structure, which is we going to throw at the end of the build. The next thing comes about the FDM's orientation, because the part orientation in FDM plays a major role. Actually, the orientation is from the machine operator's perspective, but the designer or the user who are going to use FDM machine needs to be accounted for, need to keep in mind about the orientation effects of orientation itself, because it can affect almost all the properties which we require. First thing is a part accuracy. If I orient a part, means like if I have a cylinder like this, if I orient it vertically, I can, if my priority is this cylindrical cross section, then I should orient the part in the vertical direction only. If I orient it in the horizontal direction, means like this orientation will take more time, so I'll orient it in the horizontal direction. It will take lesser time, but you can see here I lose the shape of the object itself. So this is how the part accuracy will depend on. Then if you go for part strength, as the FDM process is considered, it is highly anisotropic, because the XY plane have the filaments or the strands are deposited in parallel to the axis. So you will have the strength of the actual plastic material what we are using. That strength will be having in the XY direction. But whereas in the Z direction, since it is deposited layer by layer, only the bonding strength will be come into play. So it's like if you are getting 60 MPa with the XY plane, you will get only around 30 MPa, nearly 50% of length strength loss will be there with respect to an orientation. So when designing the product itself, you should consider this in mind. You should plan for the orientation. So you can with the plan itself, you can tackle the build time requirement and support structures things. Then as I said before, the surface finish of the removed part also affected by the part orientation itself. It means like after removing the support structures, you will have the support marks on the part itself. So those things you can decide in the design stage itself to how to orient the part, and then design you can have a better quality and functionality of the part. This orientation I will explain later with the case study which we published. Then other things like holes, pins and columns. Means like there are some features which cannot be fabricated with the FDM. So it's like we ran this test with the FDM. After we calibrate the material for fabrication, we ran this test where we'll have the small pins and square pegs. Will have the square holes and circular. These are moving parts. These three are the moving parts. So we usually print this part and calibrate our material. After calibrating material, we will check for this and will ensure that the minimum feature is available with the material itself, because it's like this process will be changing with the material and machine. So it is better to do a study before and then go for the actual design itself. So in general, most of the time, if you are designing for the whole, most of the time it will be lesser than what you design. And minimum achievable hole, you can see here. If it is a 3 mm hole, it will be achieved more legibly. And fine features, at least 2 mm is required. You can see the square shape when it is coming to 1 mm, it almost comes to an cylindrical shape. Thereby you'll have a lot of deviations from what you expected. So it is better to restrict within, if you are designing some features, you can restrict within 2 mm thickness or feature size. If you are designing for pin, it is better go for 3 mm. 3 mm I'm stating is like at 3 mm only the part will be somewhat safer to handle. It will not break. It will not be fragile. It will go fragile if you are designing usually less than 2 mm. Then if you are having an assembled components, there will be sometimes gaps, or within the parts itself there are number of, if you have a number of pins, there will be gaps we need to provide between the parts. So most of the times, if you need good quality of the gaps in the part itself, you have to orient it with parallel to the XY plane, means like with the build plane, so that you will get the gaps more prominently. So you can see here, this is 0.4 mm gap, and this is increase in gap is like 0.6 mm. So you can build 2 components within the component within the part itself as an assembly, or you can if the part have a number of gaps also, you should consider placing that in the XY plane itself. Then wall thickness is mostly affected by the nozzle diameter of the FDM machine which you are using. Most of the time we should go for 1 mm thick. I cannot tell like 1 mm is the possible thing. If you have a finer nozzle like 0.2 mm nozzle, you can go for a lesser than that size also, but 1 mm thick I would recommend, because it will be more stable. It will not break away at that much ease. So maintain at least 1 mm thick when you are designing a product, and use fillets wherever it is necessary, because if we know it is a layer by layer process. If you are printing a part like this, means like I'm printing, this is my Z part bed orientation, I'm printing a part like this. So what we do, what it will have is like this, there will be a layer, and it will start as the initial layer. So means like this, it will be like contact with 1 mm. If the thickness, if the width of the pin is like 1 mm, it will have a contact of 1 mm. It is easy to be broke away. So to increase the rigidity, we should give fillets, and most of the time, means like almost in every design process, we'll give the fillets more. We use the fillets in a similar way. You can use fillets for the FDM also. Then tabs, these are nothing but the snap joints which we design. It is possible to design snap joints with the FDM process also, design and fabricate, but you have to consider the orientation again, because if you are orienting the snaps with respect to this orientation, it will be good. Means like best, this is the best orientation for printing the snap joints. If you are printing, you can see almost few layers are coming to flexural load. This is okay to be designed, and you should not go for this kind of orientation with the snap joints. If possible, you can fabricate the snap joints and in this orientation and join to the part in the later stages. Then comes to an bosses and rib, where if you're designing for plastic components, you can always have this bosses and ribs. Bosses are nothing but that will hold this for pushing the screw. They will have the bosses. You need not to consider much about the bosses, but if you are having a large surface, large flat area, it is better to support it with the ribs, so that the part strength will be increased. And regular manufacturing process, what we do is like we will fabricate the part, then we'll go for laser marking or engraving to make mark the batch number, text, or something like that, manufacturer name, something like that. But with the additive manufacturing process, almost in every additive manufacturing process, you can have the liberty to design the text in the part itself, and you can fabricate in the single go. You have to go for the secondary process like engraving or a laser engraving or punching. So if you do the text, we should always use 16 point size when we are using text. When you are considering for FDM, it is better, again, you have to orient it on the XY plane. If you are orienting on the vertical walls, it can be much smaller also, 10 10-point font also you can use. But sometimes if the fonts oriented in the vertical axis can have support structures which we can reduce by the extrusion thickness also. That will save us time and material. Is based on order based process, where you will spread a single layer of powder over the bed. Then we'll use a CO2 laser to selectively fuse a part based on the digital CAD geometry. Here, I said in the before process, support structure plays a major role. But when it comes to selective laser sintering with the polymers, you need not to consider about the support structure itself, because the unsintered powder which are remaining here will act as a support structure to the part itself. So we need not to give much of consideration to the support structures, but orientation does matter here also. This is our machine which we recently installed in our lab. We have a build volume of 340, 340 and 600 mm. We use CO2 70 watt laser. Other materials possible with the machine is like mostly nylon, semi-crystalline nylon is possible to fabricate with the selective laser sintering. So materials will be polyamide and aluminum filled polyamide. These are all possible with the selective laser sintering. So the unique advantage with FDM process against FDM process with the SLS is, as I said before, it need not require the support structures. This is almost comparable to the binder jetting process also, where we will not require support structures for fabricating the parts. So you can see is an assembly of a part which have a number of components which will be printed and which needs to be printed. But if you are doing this with other processes, even metal or other things, what we have to do is like we'll pack only the platform. We cannot have the freedom to pack over the platform. We will pack only at the platform. So we'll have most of the time, it's like if you have 1,000 components, you may pack around 10 or 20 components at a time. Then you have to go for the next build. Like that, you have to do a repeated number of times. But when it comes to SLS, we'll pack whatever component, how many number of components we can fit in within the building volume, will pack as much as possible. There is no restriction like the smaller component, bigger component, or engineering component, or an architectural component, like that. No difference is there. Every part which is going to be built is of same material and same quality you will get from the entire build itself. So this is an typical slice layer of an build. You can see there are number of tensile specimens and number of other specimens here, and other advantages like in FDM or other process, if you have a number of increased number of parts, you'll have the time of the parts will be increased. But in SLS is like whatever is the build height, the time remains the same. Means like laser will travel much faster than the other processes. So the actual build process will be much faster. Means like in FDM you are taking like kind of 10 days to manufacture 10 parts. You can manufacture this with an SLS in a single day. That is the advantage with an selective laser sintering process. So you can see the actual building process here. So what it happens is like a layer of powder is applied over the bed with the recoater. Then it is a layer is warmed up to the required build temperature in the build chamber. Then the lasers will start exposing. Once the required temperature is reached, then the laser will start the exposure. So this is the actual speed of working. So you can see how fast the build process is happening. So once this layer is completed, then the platform will lower by a layer thickness. Then again the powder is spread over the build platform. So this is what happens in the circular laser sintering process itself. So this process of recoating, warm up, laser exposure, and build platform, lowering the build platform will repeat till our required build height is completed. So after the build is completed, we'll go for unpacking. So unpacking is like we'll let the build to cool down to the room temperature, because we are heating. Previous slide I told you we are heating to some particular temperature. Then we will let the parts to cool down to the room temperature, so that we will have uniform cooling and reduced warpage and improved part quality. Then you will do shot dusting to remove the powders, unsintered powders sticking to the part itself. This is a video of unpacking. You can see. So you can see the part. It is almost covered with the powder itself. So we will retrieve the parts one by one. Then we will go for. So after removing the whole part from the bed, we'll remove the powder, sticking powder with the part, with the brushing off. Then we'll go for shot dusting, where we'll remove the part and improve the surface finish of the product itself. So after these slides, we will see what are the design guidelines with respect to circular laser sintering. Here, these are the materials which are available with us. First is PA0000, which is a biocompatible material. Next is a glass filled polyamide. It will have a glass beads as a filler, and polyamide 11, where we need we can use this material for where we need a high impact applications, and it will have a better elongation properties. Then alumide, which is an aluminum filled polyamide material. Then is a prime cast material, which can be used for investment casting patterns. Coming slides will see about what are the research areas we work on within our lab, and how we use this design for additive manufacturing principles within all our research projects or research approaches, and how we get benefited. I will explain in the later coming slides, so that you can have an idea of how to implement the design for additive manufacturing principles within your project also. There are other research scholars who are working on design for additive manufacturing. I work on rapid tooling. Other research scholars work on metamaterials and medical devices. These are core working areas where we are actively working, and we also do prototyping services and new product development services also. So then first thing is like part consolidation. Here what we did is like we have an assembly which is planned to be manufactured with a regular conventional process. So what they did is like, as a when they're going for prototyping, they fabricated with the FDM process itself. So there are some components which cannot be replaced with the FDM. Means like there are some guide rods, bearings, motors. These things needs to be printed, needs to be the actual parts. Other things, these arms can be for the prototyping purpose they did with the FDM process itself. So it's like more than the whole assembly itself have 44 parts and other fasteners to held these parts in the position. So what we do is like we select some parts out of this assembly and taken for part consolidation. So what we did is like, so we choose these 9 parts and then we integrated them to here into 2 parts, front clamp and back clamp. So we integrated into 2 parts. Then we fabricated. Actually, when we fabricated this, the actual time taken for individual part to this one is increasing. But then we used to go for topology optimization, where we reduced the material distribution based on the loading. Then we come up with this design where we can reduce the material consumption compared to the initial design by 14% and reduce the assembly weight by 32%, and fabrication time is also reduced. And overall thing is like we reduce the assembly time for fixing that with the assembly, and the rigidity of the assembly itself increased. These are like following the design for additive manufacturing guidelines, we could achieve this improved value of the product itself. Next is like again, as we said, sometimes we need to replace the absolute spares. This we consider as a case study where we choose an alternated bracket of an automobile. Then we do reverse engineering. Then we define the design and non-design spaces. Then we go for topology optimization. Then we fabricated. We tested this component. We fabricated this component with a salted laser sintering with PA 3200 GF glass filled polyamide. We tested this for loading conditions with UTM. We fabricated fixtures and tested this component. Then another consideration is like the component should withstand the vibrations from the engine also. So what we did is like we go for a natural frequency testing where the component has a first natural frequency of 517 hertz, where the actual automobile engine has an 450 hertz, so that the engine vibration will not come to a range of the fabricated components. These two criteria: one thing is weight reduction, another thing is achieving the natural frequency above the engine frequency. These two are given as a boundary condition for the optimization condition for the topology optimization. Then we got the result and we checked with the testing also. Then this is my work which I did in postgraduate. What we did is like there is a company called Metallic Bellows India Private Limited. They do metal bellows for their process for pipe joints. If a pipe is carrying hot water or hot stream of liquid, there is a chance for contraction and expansion of the pipe. So what they do is like in general they will put this metal bellows between the pipes so that it can accommodate the expansion or contraction within the pipe based on the temperature changes. What they do is like actually most of the time, every time the design will be this is not a standard component. They cannot choose a bellow based on the standard nut or bolt. They have to give the pipe size, pressure, what liquid it is carrying. Based on that, they will go for the designing the bellow and they will go for fabrication. What they do is like sometimes they will compromise again, like over designing or under designing. You will not meet. Sometimes it is not possible to meet the customer requirement also. You need to fabricate the die at some point of time. So what I did is like I used finite element analysis to predict the forces on the die. Then we fabricate the die with an FDM. Fabricating the die itself, the design for DFIM concepts played important role here. One thing is like how to orient the die. So there are for orientation I given two considerations. One thing is like this is the functional surface which is going to contact with the part to be found. Means that this surface will come in contact with the sheet metal. This surface should be concentric. One thing, and another thing is like there is a possibility of load. Load will be in compression. It will act in this radial direction, and while forming, the load will act on the top surface. So it will be in compression also. It will be in flexure also. So I should orient these conditions. The best possible orientation I can come with is I can orient on the top surface of the die itself. So as I said before, with respect to XY plane, we will have the maximum dimensional accuracy. So we'll have maintain the shape clearly, and with respect to loading, the flexural loading, it is better. The flexural loading is perpendicular to the loading direction is perpendicular to the part layer. So that I can fabricate this metal component with a polymer tool itself. So what the advantage we got is like we can fabricate the die in lesser lead time. We need not to have specific form tools to machine out the cavities or something like that. So we do it in the shorter period. It means like the original process will take around 1 or 2 weeks, where we can do this in 2 days. The next thing is like which we design for our fixtures. We have a electrochemical micromachining center in a lab where they use this fixture. The fixture is nothing but a ferrous, made of ferrous material, and they will place magnets as a clamping clamp for the sheet metals. After some point of time, since they use other chemicals, it will become corroded with the at the later point of stage. So we thought it's like, okay, we can replace this with a plastic. So my friend asked me to print with the FDM technique. What her idea is like, okay, I will replicate the exact shape, and I will use magnets and fix the magnet with the epoxy in this cavities, and I will use. But after again later stage again the magnet gets corroded after some use. So again it comes to us. What we do is like, okay, we cannot use the magnet also. We can eliminate the use of magnet itself. So we totally replace the magnet and rethink the entire design itself. We considered the clamping as a cantilever beam and designed clamp which have the capability to position and fix the sheet metal within the part itself. And we consider other design guidelines like part orientation. Means like flexural load is going to be applied, and the part orientation plays a role in the support structure. I need to remove the support structure also. There needs to be a gap between these surfaces. So all this, with all the considerations, we fabricated the component, and we can hold the component like this. So this is the fixture fabricated. You can see here the gaps, everything. This is a single component. It's not assembly or something. It's fabricated a single component based on the design guidelines. So what we do is like, we can press these 2 levers, and I can insert the sheet metal component and hold it in the place. So it will be as simple as this. Just press and fix. You need not to have any fasteners or magnets, other components. So with this design approach, we could save time. We need not to rely on the other. We eliminate the need of magnet itself. So by this, the value addition which we given with the polymer with this fixture. These are the references which I used in this presentation. You can have a note of it. If there is any queries, you can ask now. Is there any queries or doubts? Is there?
Yes, participants, you can raise your queries. I think there is already one query. I will permit him to answer. I mean, raise his question. Yeah, G. Narayanan, you can raise your question now. Shibin, yes, you can raise your question now.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, please.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
So I have this doubt. So we are designing for gear, right?
Yes, sir.
So while designing it, can we include like keyholes and screw holes in the design?
Sir, you can have whatever the design you can have. Have it in the design itself. You need not to go for other processes. But if you're going for keyway or holes, it is possible to fabricate the shape. But when you what kind of application you're going to use, whether you're going to fabricate it with metal or polymer, it also matters. Polymers you can do. We fabricated gears with gears for our application with the nylon, it is working very good.
Okay.
Instead of going for keyways, you can go for lock grub screws kind of thing, which we can, again, you need to have an insert also. It's like you can design a nut to hold the nut in, to hold the bolt in the place.
Okay.
Direct threading is not advisable, because at the initial point it will be okay, but when you are going to unscrew, that times it will fail at the later stages. So I'll advise go for threaded insert or nuts. Have a in the design itself. Have a
Okay.
small pocket where you can insert the nut and stick it.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Narayanan, are you available? G. Narayanan, are you available to raise your question directly? Yeah, please.
A small thanks for your luck, sir. And one more thing is, so you have explained about the process and design criteria, but the thing is, does it require any DFME or FME documents for design and manufacturing?
Sir, there is a basic difference between DFMA and design for additive manufacturing. DFMA deals with the conventional process, and it will not be applicable to additive manufacturing. Over the last few days, we have seen like anything is possible with additive manufacturing. I am again telling, anything is possible with additive manufacturing. You can fabricate any shape or any combination you can do with additive manufacturing, but you have to choose the right process and the right application, right design. Only then you can achieve that. Coming to your question, these two guidelines are totally different. Means like if you are fabricating a polymer component, you will go for injection molding, right?
Yes.
With injection molding, you need to consider for draft angle. You need to consider for a uniform wall thickness. If it does it have an undercuts? If you planning for a tooling operation, because if you have an undercut, you need to have a specialized sliders in your tool. Those things you need not to consider in additive manufacturing. You can, whatever you design, you give it to the machine, it will print. But one thing is like you should satisfy the basic requirements. It's like minimum features size. If it is not falling lesser than the minimum features size, you can definitely achieve it. There is no restriction with this shape.
Yes, thank you. So there is no other questions, I think.
Okay, sir.
So on behalf of the Department of Mechanical Engineering of B.S. Abdur Rahman, Crescent Institute of Science and Technology, I take it my pleasure to thank Mr. R. Prithivirajan for giving a wonderful presentation on the various aspects of additive manufacturing related to the design, various case studies, examples, components. I think you have given a clear picture. So thank you very much for spending a valuable time.
Sir, thank you, sir. If the participants, if the participants or other researchers who have requirement for prototyping, you can use our lab. We have a selective laser sintering machine and a FDM machine. We are going to add few more equipments also. You can, if you have requirements, you can drop us mail in this mail ID amsls@up@gmail.com, and you can call us in this phone number. And other thing is like, first of all, I should thank Dr. A. Azad, who is my professor here. He taught us design for manufacturing for me. Later, he's registered for your university, I hope.